What's going on, everybody? Today is Tuesday, October 10th. It's 10:10. Do you know where your child is? If you're old enough to know, remember that it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your child is? It's the Daily AI Show Live. We're here every single weekday to talk about all different types of AI topics. And today we have a fun one. Robert was just yelling at us prior to going live and saying, stop talking about the topic before we're live, which is probably a fair point. But today is about intelligence, and it's talking about, Beth, I think you had this idea for this show, and I kind of liked it, which was just sort of, do we need to redefine what intelligence is in the modern age of AI? And when I say modern, I mean probably ChatGPT forward, because there's plenty of articles out that cover this topic, but they're from 2019, 2020. And not that they're out of date, but they definitely kind of feel out of date post ChatGPT last November. So it's an interesting topic. I was given a whole bunch of my thoughts on it after reading a couple different blogs and things that sort of got my mind running. But I don't know, Beth, do you want to maybe kick this off, since this was your idea for a topic? And Beth was like, wait, hold on, was it?
Yeah, it definitely was.
Go for it, Beth.
So in the Salesforce world and other kind of subject matter certifications, we're sort of watching the drumbeat of, oh, it can pass this certification exam now, and it can pass this certification exam now. And a bunch of those certifications were, do you know how to construct like a validation rule? Or, do you know how to write this formula in Excel, right? And those sorts of things are no longer, I think, as key to success, which is what you're measuring, right? The real question is, what are you trying to measure? Are you trying to measure the ability for someone to be successful in a situation? And how does that change when it's not required on you having information memorized, or the same content level of information memorized that you needed a year ago, right? So yeah, that's why I brought this up.
So yeah, now that I don't have I know Robert's waiting on pushback. See, I don't have a pushback on that, but I think here's my thought on that. Like, the calculator did the same thing. It eliminated memorization in a certain key area.
Times tables?
When we had maps. And the first time you could print out a MapQuest from your computer, and we would all walk around with pieces of paper in our cars, and you would go, turn left at the whatever. Before that, it was like, go to the local grocery store. You'll know it. It's the one with the wooden sign on the sign, and turn right there. You had to sort of memorize that. Or when I was a kid going through the golf cart paths of Peachtree City, Georgia, we would literally just go. There was paved paths through the woods, and you go, yeah, when you see that tree and then you try to tell your buddy, you'd be like, the tree's kind of split, and you go left at that path, Now all those 60 miles of golf cart paths are on Google Maps. You could literally be lost in the woods in Peachtree City, Georgia, and open up your phone and go, oh no, I know where I am. I'm only a block away from the Publix, but I can't see it, or the Kroger. It's just through the tree line, which would have been a normal thing in that town. So not a pushback, but I'm just like, we've gone through these periods before. Is this just another, maybe seemingly feeling more human step to that?
It's so not the same. I recognize what you're trying to say as far as a parallel, but okay, so we got a lot to talk about. I do want to share one little thing because I think it's relevant. So look at this, everybody. This is from lifearchitect.ai. Is it being shared yet? Yeah, there it is. Okay. So just a couple graphs, neat. Percentile of humans, they're even better at us at tasting wine. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. So they're better at being a sommelier. Look at the IQ percentiles. And obviously you can argue about IQ tests and whatnot, but it's better than all the IQ people. So let's talk about intelligence versus, and this is something that you mentioned earlier before the show, like, what is intelligence in the age of AI? So I have different camps I fall in. So what is intelligence? What is knowing? Like when I say, oh, GPT knows this and whatnot. And there's another one that from my slide deck that I do, it shows you how GPT versus GPT-4 does on, art history, psychology, US history, math. And it's just like killing it in the 85th plus percentile, right? But all that to say, what is intelligence and how do we measure it? And I think that when you're talking about that, it's like you just said, Beth, it's recalling, it's memorization, recalling memory. But as I say all the time, that's exactly how humans operate. When I say this sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy blank, most
Typing.
people know that the next step is going to be dog, because it knows that you're following that train of thinking, and the same thing that your brain does, that is what a language model does. So I say that to say it's not intelligent in the context of autonomous intelligence, but it does reference the data the same way we would. So my pushback, or my big question to everybody is, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, isn't it a duck? Like, if it can fake emotional intelligence, what's the difference? If you can't tell, Turing test, if you can't tell, then what is it saying?
It could be a robot duck.
Hmm.
But
Right?
comparing it side by
There we
side.
go.
I looks and quacks. I mean, like,
I was
it's
like,
a
Jimmy's
pretty
got
simple
something to
test.
say, but I cannot hear him. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very. I will push back on that, or I'll try to answer the question. Is intelligence is not that specific parameter, right? That right now, when we measure intelligence, it has several parameters. It's not just like IQ, which is a narrow band of parameters. And what you're talking about is recall, right? Rote memorization or recall of information, and being able to, put the next word or expected answer. With intelligence, I think the main things that we need to focus on are the ability to come up with or use critical thinking, right? It's being able to draw in on all of those sources, use our own internal assessments and experiences and things like that, and be able to answer whatever question or perform any task or anything like that. Now, AI is significantly grown in capability, but it still doesn't think. It processes information like humans do, because that was the whole purpose of building it out that way. Natural language processing and all of that kind of stuff. But the ability to absorb, add that creativity, or adapt to changes in that information, that it still lacks.
Well,
and I think that's
I have to say,
On that.
if it can imitate it, then what's the difference?
Well, does a tree fall when a tree falls in the woods? Does it make a sound?
No, that's being trite. Honestly,
Okay.
if you can imitate it, all those things are great. You can't actual critical thinking skills. And sorry, Andy, I know you want to say something, but it is. We might go about it this way: critical thinking skills, emotional intelligence. But if it can imitate it, then that's where I think the camps are really in disagreement about.
I guess
AI
that's more of an assessment of our ability to recognize than its ability to imitate. Is it actually producing it, or is it just producing what we think it should be? And I guess and that is probably a key question there. Is like with the problem with the Turing test is that it fools us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually doing it.
Perception's
right?
reality,
the tester.
Right?
And it does that does beg the question, at what point is it tipping point? And I agree with that. Okay. But it's not, I don't think it necessarily correlates.
And it depends on who. Perception is subjective, right? Perception is reality on an individual level, but it's not scientific reality, right? It does not pass science. Andy, take us out of here.
So I'm in Robert's camp on this one. My experience with AI is that it demonstrates critical thinking skill.
Yes.
There's actually a prompt that all of us, we have used, which asks the GPT to show its thinking. Just as I might ask, what's your thinking on that? Well, I'm going to evaluate your thinking. GPT can also evaluate its own thinking and criticize it. That's critical thinking. So I'm going to go back to a point of fact, which is that Ray Kurzweil, wrote a book about the human mind and how it operates, really from a biological sort of, neuronal level. and the conclusion is that it's a memory prediction engine. GPTs are a memory prediction engine.
Right.
They're
Amen.
mimicking exactly what our brains do. I'm squarely in Robert's camp on this. Now, there are some things that we think we can do better than the current state of AI. And among them are sort of adaptability with awareness of context. So a big part of our brains are made up of recognizing facial cues, right? Facial recognition occupies an enormous part of our brain capability, and not at all in GPT at this point. So we have that skill at the moment. We've learned it from an early age. It's patterned into our brain's design, in our DNA. But AI can learn that too.
Yeah, right now I can tell Junmi is not agreeing with us by the facial cues of his eyebrow furrowed.
Okay, but there are lots of people for whom that is not an innate skill.
True.
Right?
And
There are
they're-
lots of
they're-
brains that are not
They don't have that
initially wired.
intelligence.
It-
I mean,
Here,
so then what is intelligence?
no, the firefighter story.
We always have to stop for firefighter stories. Here you go.
yeah, I feel like I want to bring this up because I don't know that I think maybe Andy, maybe you got me when you said yet, and I thought, damn it, I think he got me on that one. But okay, here's what I was going to say because he said yet, it's not there yet. So one of the smarter people, and he was a mentor to me, was a guy named Bill Smith, Chief Smith, right? And so I was a dumb rookie firefighter, and he used to save me quite figuratively and literally in various situations of not getting myself in trouble, either with my mouth or literally running into a location I shouldn't have been in. And so I might have told this before, but like he would get on a scene and he could stand back and like many chiefs could look at a fire scene and assess it with such amazingness to me as somebody who didn't have that skill set. And he could, in a moment's notice, taking things like calculate wind speed, not like actually calculate it, but understand the impact it was going to have on fire spread. Understand how the smoke was billowing from ones. Look at the color of the windows and the tinting of yellow. Understand that there was 3 cars and it was 3 a.m. and there potentially could be people inside. Look at the way the outside of the parking lot was situated. Look at different trees and all that. And what seemed to me to be almost instantaneous could say, Engine 3, I want you to go to the front door. You're going to drop a 2.5 line. And then it would just be like that, right? It would just be this smooth, controlled, calming voice on the radio, not hyped, not with like as crazy as a fire scene can be. It would just be like Engine 3, blah, 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 right? And you would get your orders and you would go and do the thing you needed to do. That's intelligence, right? We can agree that takes a level of intelligence. Now, what I would say to that is that was the culmination of 20 plus years of going on many fires and having all of that stuff in his brain that he was able to assess and then regurgitate in a way, though, that took significant critical thinking skills to produce the right outcome. Can AI do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think there are lots of examples that show that it'll do it better than humans.
Yeah.
Not better than Chief Smith, all right?
But here's the thing, Brian. Here's the thing. To your point, though, it only will be able to do it because it's trained on the knowledge that we've determined what it needs to look for. So, like, it wouldn't know what to look for without us telling us, look for 3 cars, look for the coloring of the windows. Like, it wouldn't know that unless it, again, either read it from a book on how to be a firefighter or let it from documentation on, whatever from Chief. So I think it's kind of
not true. That's how it's programmed now. But if you give like a stack of the last 25 years of
fire videos, yeah, I agree.
Well, fire videos, but like these are the activities that happened, and this was the outcome.
Yeah,
AI
of course.
can learn from that.
Sure.
That isn't actually knowledge that humans got first, right? I mean, the comprehensive knowledge from all of that is not something that a human has consumed and like stacked in their head and then regurgitated for AI to learn from. That's an AI only process.
Right now, you're right. I think right now we're giving most of the data, but then there's going to be a tipping point again where it's going to be like right now, it's actually creating its own data sets right now. So a lot of the language models are trained on itself, which I think is like, eating its tail, or a feedback loop that might end up being bad. But so far, it hasn't proved to be bad so far.
I would imagine there's a
That
lot
we
of
know
fear
of.
bias in there. I would think so, that there's a huge concern of like bias creeping in, and all of a sudden, after it's doing multiple feedback loops, all of a sudden it doesn't want to provide help to people who say aloha, because they're from a certain part of the world or something like that. I just think there's I don't know, that part of it worries me, but at the same time, humans are flawed. So we know that the information, to a certain extent, if the intelligence is built only off of human intelligence, we're in trouble, because we're flawed and we don't have perfect memories. In fact, it's been proven time and time again that our brains will, in fact, make up completely wrong versions of what actually happened in real time.
I know a lot of people who do that.
So,
Well, I mean-
then the question is, what is the point of intelligence? What is the point, and what is the value of specific kinds of intelligence in the age of AI? If we can make a competent anything, then competency ceases to be like the echelon. And for me, in researching for this show, I read some things from innovative schools talking about like data literacy, reasoning, critical reasoning, and collaboration. That those are the keys. Those are some of the things that we should be educating about and measuring for, because that is likely to indicate a better ability to perform in future, right? To succeed and perform in the future, more than I have this comprehensive knowledge of this piece of information as of this time period.
I tell you
Right.
that's some
important
seriously
now to
deep
have
stuff.
comprehensive language? I guess that's the next question.
What was it? I missed it.
Well, with access to something like AI, with access to all of the internet and all the information we have accessible, and the ability for AI to pull up that information as we need it, how important is it to have the comprehensive knowledge?
I think it's more what Beth just said. It's the critical thinking skills is what I would want, because there's to Robert's point, there's a tipping point at which if I go to my personal physician, just your normal personal physician, still got to have bedside manner, still a lot of human elements that the AI is not going to replace that. But at a certain point, if we have developed an AI that conclusively has shown that it can take the knowledge of the world and impart it into the hand of this physician, at what point do I care where the physician went to school, or how much he studied or she studied, or the remote
what they scored
memory
on their
to it, or anything like that?
Right.
Or those kinds of things.
But right now, though, I'll tell you, Brian, right now you care because it has to be somebody that tells you if the AI is wrong. Eventually, we'll get past that. But right now, back to your question, Jumi, why do we need to have comprehensive knowledge? So we can find when it produces the wrong output and when it hallucinates. We would know hallucinations if we didn't have knowledge. If I asked my 8-year-old, the 13-year-old, however old she is, to assess an output, I'd be like, is this right or wrong? She would have no idea. She doesn't have the base of knowledge to know. So that's an important distinction. But in her lifetime, she won't make that distinction. She'll rely on it. She'll think it's fact. She'll think it's a calculator, and it can't be error.
So I think the collaboration piece is really important in this context. Like, I think that's the skill in moving forward. And if we think about it, like passing a driving test is basically how good are you at collaborating with your car, right? And Robert, I think, is better than collaborating with a motorcycle. I don't know about anybody else. He's better than I am at collaborating with that. So I think our collaboration skills and our ability to figure out how to collaborate with something or someone, I think those become more critical.
I look forward to collaborating with AI. And I believe AI will eventually learn how to collaborate with experts who are human, who have developed deeper knowledge or greater creativity, those sort of outlier individuals that the AI can identify that it could learn from, it will collaborate with them in order to develop its responses. I want to provide a comfort to all the humans out there who are worried about competing with AI. Okay, here's the recourse that you have. We have right inside this dome.
He's pointing to his head.
My dome.
With or without.
We have inside this dome a meat-based processor, just like an AI, that's portable and can work at a campground without Wi-Fi. Okay, so it can solve problems there. It can, be attentive to and sensitive to other human beings, and it can also collaborate with AI. So you have a lot of potential. You can do an amazing number of things. Go out there and be productive. Don't worry about AI, but don't try to compete with AI either. AI is going to vastly outpace the capacity of any single human being's brain.
And going back to the collaboration comment, I think that when it starts collaborating with itself, then I wouldn't want to go sky is falling kind of reaction, but I would say that's when real innovation can start happening, and they start finding cures to diseases and stuff like that. And secondly,
a solution to climate change. I mean, I feel dependent on AI to come up with.
Don't be dropping that in there, because climate change is a myth. Anyway, so
all right,
go ahead, Aaron. Break it up before we get into another political argument.
It's not policy; it's science.
Yeah,
So
science there is no climate change. There is no climate change. That's science.
So I think at the end of the day, we've got to look at it and say, okay, number one, what is intelligence? But number two, what's the value of it? Because I think we all probably know people that we would consider to be highly intelligent, but they're useless and or incompetent in pretty important situations, whether it's in their interactions with other human beings or how they live their life or what they do for their job or whatever. If we lived in a desert, let's say we had a house, we had food, we had water, but we just lived in, there was nowhere to go, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no internet. What is intelligence? What's the value of it? Because what are you going to do? You're probably going to just sit around and twiddle your thumbs after some stage. So I think it's really, I also think you have to separate intelligence from education. I think they're two different things. But intelligence is, I don't know, it's a tough one to define. And AI's version of intelligence is probably very different and very similar to us. But
to your point, it's always changing. Like if you're on a desert island, you don't care about computers. I like that, but it's a moving target that continues to shift. I'd say go up, but it could be going sideways. So you're right. The definition, it really is, are you able to adapt and interact with the society around you? And if you're unintelligent, you can't.
Let's take it one step further. If you get stranded on a desert island, I definitely want to be in a group of people where there's a really good critical thinker who has no internet, has no Wi-Fi, doesn't ever or has not been ever asked to create a shelter with coconuts and tree limbs, but is able to go, well,
figure it out.
If we go this way and we do that, I think we can do this. That's to me.
I tell you who I want. I want a fireman. That's what I want.
Would an AI solution be able to do that? I don't know, Beth. What do you think?
Well, I'm like turning over what Robert just said in my head. If intelligence is the ability to adapt and interact with the environment around you, then none of our intelligence tests, none of the ones that we proposed here, measure for that.
Yeah.
And I would say that the kinds of people that we sort of say are not intelligent, generally meaning not intellectual, are potentially much higher on that particular scale than people who would be considered very intelligent.
I think that's an excellent point. I believe that the same things that are measured, the same intellectual capabilities that are measured by IQ tests are at play in the person who may not have studied and gained knowledge that allows them to succeed on the bias testing,
Right.
but it's the same kind of intellectual skill that's delivering the skills that you're expecting there, that even though they couldn't get a high score on an IQ test.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
according to Claude, I asked an AI about IQ. It said that traditional metrics are narrow, they don't capture the full range of human intelligence, creativity, emotional intelligence, adaptability, and other factors are important. And we don't typically measure anything other than ability to memorize and regurgitate facts, and perhaps some creativity with the typical. I mean, I've done an IQ test since I was in high school, but they don't test you on your emotional intelligence or your adaptability or any of those sort of things. So, intelligence probably needs to be a lot more than what we currently look at it as.
Well, that's before we get to the TLDR, because I know I could see it. He was going to hit
He's
it.
like,
I
on
had to
it.
catch it before he said it, because I could see Jimmy was getting ready. No, I do have one quick question, because I'm just curious everybody's reaction to this. I know only because Robert has said that he has a daughter at the same age. I don't know who else has kids and stuff, but we have daughters that are around 13, right? My daughter's just about to be 13, and so I'm just curious, and I'm just asking, with what we know today and what we can reasonably assume is coming. My daughter will be 23 and just hitting the workforce in 10 years. 10, not 5, 10 years. What does she need to do or know in terms of intelligence today and for the next 10 years to make her successful in the workforce 10 years from now?
Yeah, so this is a comment I was going to make earlier. You got to skate to where the puck's going, kind of thinking, right? And right now, I can't predict the next 6 months, let alone the 10 years. Oh my word, man! I don't know.
Anybody?
I would
Andy,
say
I feel like
that
maybe.
I have a point, but Jimmy, I'll follow you.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to say, I think it really does come down to the realms that are outside the rote memorization, right? It is that creative thinking. It's that that EQ, that emotional intelligence, the ability, like Beth says, collaborate, whether it's with an object, an AI, or other people. All of those kinds of skills and all of those and that kind of knowledge and experience isn't something you're gonna really read in a book, right? That comes from interacting, and those kinds of things will always be important, no matter what AI goes to or what it becomes. So I think those are the kinds of things that you want to see. I want someone who has for a job, I would want someone who can learn quickly, who can assess whatever task or project I give them and use whatever tools they need and whatever knowledge base they need to accomplish it. I don't care if it's already in their head.
I think that's brilliant. And to your point, Jimmy, that's exactly, I'm consulting for the University of Tennessee, and they want me to talk to their students. And one of the things I tell them is stop trying to solve problems the old way. You need to be adaptable. You need to be able to switch tools. You need to be able to pivot. So back to whoever said it, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. That's what you should be focusing on to your answer to your question. But also math, because obviously ChatGPT can't do math, so might as well just do that, right?
That's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I go for it, Andy, before we
hold on. One more thing. Hold on. So this right here was this is what ChatGPT said that it was bad at: reasoning, empathizing, abstracting, extrapolating, and generalizing. So according to it, this is what language models aren't good at, or AIs aren't good at. And I would argue yet again, so I guess I'm arguing that all this could be imitated, except for math. So I don't know what that means to everybody, but that's my TLDR.
So
All right,
I'm
so
gonna. This
go
is
ahead,
not
Beth.
gonna. This
Go
is
ahead.
not gonna surprise anybody, but I'm gonna say self-learning and responding in the moment, and I think improvisational skills give you that, right? Like learning to improvise is learning to collaborate. But Brian, the other thing, I know your daughter does gymnastics, right?
Mhm.
So she has the ability to self-assess in her environment and shift and make changes in that. So I'm coming from an improv world. He's coming from a gymnastics world, but something that you are being you're self-referential, you're self improving in your interaction with an environment, right? That's not like some teacher gave you an A.
Okay.
I would say.
My TLDR is that humans' evolution has brought us to a point where we have substantial intelligence. It's been able to create an artificial intelligence, which is amazing. But we are social creatures. We are going to die in isolation. You will literally, if you isolate an infant, it will die if it doesn't have that socialization. So we're programmed to be interactive with other human beings. And so my advice to your daughter, Brian, would be, develop yourself in every way, but do it in the context of socialization, not just attending to the screen that's your computer. Do it with live, face-to-face, and group dynamics. Those are really essential to what the future of humans are.
I love it.
Yeah. So mine is, humans, since I've been alive, new technology has come out and we've adapted to it. We went from figuring out math problems on a piece of paper with a pen to using calculators, to using computers, to using spreadsheets, to using blah, 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 blah. We just need to learn to be flexible and adapt to the new way of doing things. I think that's really a large part of it. And that probably requires an open mindset that's open to, self-learning, flexibility, that kind of stuff. So focus on that kind of thing. I think that will stand you in good stead in a lot of areas in life.
No, I think it's great. I'll use mine real quick just because we had sort of a late comment, and I apologize. We don't have your name, but it says, great talk. There's a paradigm shift afoot when it comes to learning paths. It has removed the end game and also breaks the linear learning path into multiple steps and iterations. This is a really important but extremely broad discussion we haven't approached quite yet. Thank you for that comment. I wish I knew who it was, but thank you for adding that to the conversation. Yeah, I agree with you. It's listen, we didn't solve it, as I usually say on this show. I don't think we solved it. We came close. We came close, team. But this is obviously a much bigger conversation that could go beyond 30 minutes. Did anybody not have a chance to do their TLDR? No,
Right.
That's it. I'll use that as mine. Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, we're almost on time, so that's good. I appreciate everybody hanging out and listening into us kind of just talk about AI and intelligence. Curious to, hear what you all have to say. So you can always throw more conversations or more comments in the chat, even after this goes live. We will certainly respond to them when we see them. So for that, I will say, have a great day. Have a great Tuesday if you're watching this live, and we will see you again tomorrow. I think we'll have the whole group tomorrow, so that'd be kind of cool. All right, guys. Until then, see ya.
Happy
Bye.
Tuesday.
It was Delma. Thanks, Delma. Appreciate it.